the shadow to my light. Did you feel us? Where are you now? Where are you now? Was it all in fantasy? Where are you now? Were you only imaginary? Where are you now? I'm dancing.
Enough of that. Howdy-haie guys, staying true to the title, we are indeed reviewing BBC One's Atlantis Series 1 and 2 today. So as briefly mentioned, Atlantis is a BBC One mythical drama that started in 2013 to sadly getting cancelled in 2015. It follows our main protagonist called Jason being thrust back in time to ancient Greece, the slightly alarming life quest of saving the city of Atlantis. So this is going to be a non-spoiler review. I'm going to be mentioning a few little things that were in the first episode, but it shouldn't spoil you. And yes, it's going to be non-spoiler for both Series 1 and Series 2. I just briefly said that Jason was in fact thrown back in time. To be honest, I don't know why he was in the present day for the beginning of the first episode. Even though they do go on to explain it later on in the series, I still feel like it's a little bit extreme. A situation, I guess. It just kind of didn't feel relevant, like it really needed to happen, at least not to that extremity. So a little quick background on myself. Of course I haven't read every single myth out there, but I am particularly fond on Greek mythology, and I felt like this series kind of mixed a lot of characters and situations up together that in the actual myths they would never have crossed paths, or maybe not to the severity of that they did in the show. I mean, for the most part, these situations were woven together quite well, so it didn't bother me all the time, but there were some times where I just disliked it and it didn't agree with me. As I mentioned, this is non-spoiler, but you may get a little bit hesitant when I say certain characters. You can see from the cover, I have the cover down there, that Medusa is going to be in there. Well, she's going to feature in some way because there's a lady with snakes in her hair on the cover. So I'm just going to quickly talk about her story arc as an example of the situations getting mixed together, if you know what I mean. So she got her powers in a very different way than she did in the original mythology, and even though it did help to get the plot going and continue the story, I personally wasn't that keen on such a big change in character and development. So that was one of the main examples of situations being mixed up and that I didn't agree with. However, one example that I did enjoy was Icarus and his wings. So obviously this is another well-known myth among a lot of people, and in the show, even though it didn't follow the accuracy of the myth, I still feel like it was a really nice inclusion to have in the story, and having that extra character development that you wasn't expecting in that instance, I felt like it was very good and was a beneficial asset to have. One thing I did seem to notice was how little influence the gods seem to have in this interpretation of Greek mythology. And a thing that I found really interesting was, rather than being described as demigods, characters that are, I guess, halflings of mortals and immortals was described as being touched by the gods, which I thought was a very unique way of describing things and kind of added a little bit more flair to the storyline, so you wasn't watching something that, for me personally, I've read many times. So yeah, it added a bit of spice, it made things seem a little bit different. Really enjoyed the cast chosen to play the characters, even though Hercules was a surprise from me. I haven't read much about Hercules, but I was used to seeing it in the Disney formation of like this very muscular guy, and the Hercules portrayed in this interpretation was not as I was expecting. He was actually played by the king before Joffrey's dad in A Game of Thrones, and I think he added a lot of humour actually. As well as him, I did see a lot of other familiar faces, so it was a really good cast. For example, Jason was also the teacher in House of Anubis, so clearly he likes his mythology. So not every character had a completely fleshed out background, but it was enough to make them, I guess, a little bit believable and realistic as characters. And I really enjoyed where Pythagoras' own storyline took us. The character called Cassandra, although she wasn't in it a lot, I was always entranced whenever she was on the screen. The actress who plays Cassandra, Anna Taylor-Joy, I think her name is, was absolutely great, and I didn't actually recognise that she plays a character in that horror film The Witch, which I have still yet to see. But if she's as any good as she is in Atlantis in The Witch, then I'm definitely on that. I really enjoyed how the very last episode on season 2 kind of suggested a new quest, one of the better known mythologies for Jason, and I'm really gutted that it got cancelled because I think that series would have just been absolutely wonderful. Obviously I'm not going to go into too much depth about season 2 because I don't want to spoil anything that happened in season 1, but it was definitely far more darker than season 1 was. It took us to kind of like a different level of storyline, if you know what I mean, but I still consider it a very family based show. Like, I'd feel comfortable sitting and watching it with my family. It's definitely a show that's packed full of emotion. And just to end on this note, I rarely watch behind the scenes because I feel like it kind of kills the magic of some shows, but for this I had to have more of it because I knew I wasn't getting a series 3 probably ever, and I just needed to absorb as much as I could. So yeah, really interesting behind the scenes, and the show as a whole is absolutely amazing. So if you are into mythology or periodic pieces, or you just want to look at a kind of new to you drama that you want to watch, definitely check out Atlantis. Just keep in mind that yes, it does get cancelled for season 3, so there's only 2 seasons and it does feel like it's unfinished, if you know what I mean. If you're not worried about being left in the dark as to what happens next and you just want to dive in anyway, I totally recommend it because I thought it was a great 2 series that we've had. So that is all. If you have any other mythological kind of dramas that you want me to check out, feel free to give me some suggestions, or just suggestions in general, to be honest. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.